Hello and welcome to Physics with Amol sir. So this video is for class 11 and today we are going to start with the chapter Units and Measurement. So I hope that you have gone through the first chapter, that is Physical World. Okay. Make sure that you have read the chapter from the textbook. So there are many interesting things that you will find there. Today, as I said, we will begin with the chapter of Units and Measurement. This is a very crucial chapter. Okay. The things that you are going to learn in this chapter, you will be using them throughout 11th year as well as in 12th, because this is the basis. Okay, we are going to learn lot of basics, lot of things that you will be using in all the other chapters henceforth. So this particular chapter, Units and Measurement, is not just meant for 11th class and not just meant for this particular chapter. These concepts will be used in all the next chapters and in 12th class as well. So make sure that all the concepts are properly understood by you, because we are going to use each and every concept in the forthcoming chapters. First, let us talk about the concept of measurement. Now measurement, it is an integral part of any kind of scientific study. If you are doing any kind of study, that will be incomplete without measuring. For example, you would be seeing in the news, okay, the reporters will say that last year the rainfall was this much, this year the rainfall might be XYZ. Okay, so we are noticing 5% increase in the rainfall or 5% decrease in the rainfall. That we understand by the measurement. Okay, or we talk about the number of corona cases that are taking place in our country and in the world every day. That is again done by the by measurements. So measurement is very important for any kind of scientific study. Without doing measurement, we cannot understand what is the physical phenomena that is happening in front of us. Therefore, we need to be able to do measurements. And therefore, as science students, even we should understand how measurements are done. And that is why this particular chapter is very important for us to understand. So today we will talk about what is the meaning of physical quantities, and we will talk about their units. Okay, so let's begin. First we will see what we mean by a physical quantity. A quantity which can be measured is known as a physical quantity. Okay, that is the definition of physical quantity. So now what is the meaning of this? Let us say we look at this pen. Okay, if I ask you to measure the length of this pen, can you measure that? Yes. So we will say length is a physical quantity. Or if you are asked to measure the diameter of this pen, the diameter of the cross section, that is something that you can measure. Therefore, diameter becomes a physical quantity. Or if you are asked to measure the mass of this pen, okay, you will use a weighing machine and you will be able to tell the mass of this pen. So mass is also a physical quantity. So a quantity which can be measured, that we call as a physical quantity. Fine. So in physics, there are n number of quantities and we are going to see them one by one. All these are very important as they help us in measurements. Okay. So as physics students, we should understand the concept of physical quantities. Now whichever quantity you cannot measure, that we will not call as a physical quantity. For example, we will say that today I am feeling very happy. Okay. So happiness is not something that we can measure. Okay, there is no unit that we can use for happiness. Fine. So therefore happiness or sadness, okay, these are not measurable quantities. Thereby they are not physical quantities. They are emotions. Okay. So as physics students, we should understand which is a quantity that can be measured and which cannot be measured. The quantity that we can measure is physical quantity. And for us, these are the quantities that are important. But having the concept and having the understanding of quantities is not enough. We also need to know the units. For example, if you are traveling from let us say Tiruvannamalai to Chennai, so we know that we can measure the distance between these two cities, and that distance will be somewhere around 180 kilometers. Okay, so we know that the quantity that we will use is the length or distance. But to measure this quantity, we are going to use the unit, and that unit is kilometers. So we need the understanding of quantity as well as unit. Without the unit, the quantity cannot be understood. Okay, or when we are driving our bike, Okay, so we say we are driving the bike at 40 kilometers per hour or 50 kilometers per hour, right? So we need the quantity, that is speed, but at the same time we need the unit, which is kilometer per hour. Okay, so along with physical quantities, their units are also very important. We need to know quantities as well as their units, and we should be able to use the proper units in that particular case. For example, if you are measuring the length of this pen, you will say the length is around 15 centimeters, right? So centimeter is the unit we are going to use for this. But if we want to measure the length between two cities, the distance between two cities, then we will not use the unit of centimeters. Then we will use the unit of kilometers, because that will be more appropriate. Okay, so we should know which particular quantity to be used in which particular case, right? So now we are going to see the base quantities or fundamental quantities. There are 7 physical quantities which are called as a fundamental quantities or base quantities. All other quantities, they will be derived from these quantities, but these 7, they form the basis of all the physical quantities. So let us see. So now we will see the 7 fundamental or base quantities, and side by side we will also see the units. Okay, so the first base quantity, now there is no as such ranking or link this thing for them, arrangement for them. We will see them one by one. Okay, so one of the quantities is length. Okay, so base quantity, the first quantity we understand is length, and the unit, that is the SI unit. Now I am sure you remember the concept of SI units and CBS units, so I will not go into that case once again. Okay, so SI units for unit for length, I am sure you remember, is meter. Okay, next quantity is mass. I am sure you remember the SI unit for mass, and that is kg. Third fundamental quantity, time. I hope you remember SI unit for time is second. Okay, next is electric current. Electric current, you would remember from 10th standard, SI unit for electric current is ampere. Okay, so we have 4. Fifth one is amount of substance. Amount of substance, the unit we measure is called as mole. Amount of substance, you will learn more about this in chemistry. Next is temperature. Temperature we measure, the SI unit is something called as Kelvin. Again, in later chapters we will see more about this unit, that is Kelvin. And the last fundamental quantity is luminous intensity. Luminous intensity, basically it gives the intensity of light. Okay, we will learn more about this in later chapters. It is measured, the SI unit for it is called as candela. So these are the 7 fundamental or base quantities: length, mass, time, electric current, amount of substance, temperature, and luminous intensity. Now I said first, second, third. There is as such no first, second, third for them, but these are the 7 fundamental quantities. You should remember the names of all these 7 quantities, and you should know their SI units. Okay, very important for us to understand these 7. Now along with the 7 fundamental quantities, there are 2 quantities which are called as supplementary base quantities. Okay, so these are as a supplementary quantity to the earlier 7 fundamental. But remember, fundamental quantities are only 7. Okay, these 2 are a supplementary ones. Okay, so in supplementary quantity, one of them is called as the plane angle. Okay, plane angle, that we learn in geometry. Okay, if we have 2 rays, the angle between these 2 rays, that is the plane angle. SI unit of plane angle is something called as radian. Okay, now I'm sure you have not heard of this word before, that is radian. We will see what is the meaning of radian. And the other quantity is called as the solid angle. Okay, and the SI unit of solid angle is steradian. Now we will see what is the meaning of this solid angle. Plane angle, I am sure you understand, it is a 2-dimensional concept. So if we have one ray here and the other ray, okay, the angle between these 2 rays, that we call as the plane angle. Solid angle, as I said, it is a 3-dimensional concept. So how do we understand? Imagine we are holding a rope in our hand like this. Okay, the rope is tied over here. If you move this rope in a circular path, right? So if the rope moves in a circular path, it will move along a path that looks like this. Correct? So this region here, this is called as the solid angle. Okay, or you can imagine a conical shape, right? So the angle of that cone, that is basically a solid angle, right? And the SI unit of solid angle is called as steradian. Okay, and SI unit for plane angle is called as radian. So remember, whenever we are going to measure angles from now onwards, we will not measure them in degrees, we will actually measure them in something called as radian. Now definitely you have been confused when we heard the word radian. Okay, that being used for angles. So we are now going to understand what is the relation between degrees and radians. Normally whenever we measure angles, till now we have measured them in the unit of degrees. So you know very well that a complete circle will be 360 degrees. Okay, a perpendicular, that will be equal to 90 degrees. These are the angles we understand very well. But the SI unit, as I said, is something called as radian. Now in mathematics, you are going to learn all the basis, whatever is the theory behind radian and degrees, that will be taught to you by a mathematics teacher. What I will teach you right now is only how to find the relationship between degrees and radians, which is very, very easy. So you understand angles in degrees very well. All you have to do is how to understand how to convert degrees into radian. And there is a very simple formula. If you want to convert any angle which is given in degree, and that degree angle you want to convert into radian, how do you convert? Simply you multiply it by pi divided by 108. Okay, as simple as that. If an angle is given to you in degrees and you want to convert it into radian, simply multiply that angle by pi by 180. So how do we do it? Let us take a simple example of 90 degrees. So we have an angle which is 90 degrees. So 90 degrees will be how many radians? By the way, radian is written like this, RAD. That is the short form for radian. So 90 degree I want to convert into radians. What I will do? Multiply it by pi by 180. Pi, I am sure you remember. Okay, pi is the number. The value of pi, it is 3.14. Okay, it is an irrational number, but we are going to keep it till 2 decimal points. So pi is 3.14. So how do you convert 90 degrees into radians? You take 90 multiplied by pi by 180. So what will happen? 91s are 92s are. What you get? Pi by 2. Therefore it is pi by 2 radians. Getting the idea? So 90 degree is pi by 2 radians. Or let us say 180 degrees. You want to convert 180 degrees into radians. What will you do? 180 multiplied by pi by 180. 180 cancelled. What is remaining is pi. So therefore it is pi radians. Okay, that is the idea. So you can convert any angle that is given in degrees into radians. Simply what you have to do, multiply it by pi by 180. And of course now you can understand, if you have to convert radians into degrees, you will multiply by 180 by pi. Okay, so if I want to convert any angle that is in radians, and if radians I want to convert into degrees, what I will do? Multiply it by 180 by pi. So for example, somebody tells us we are having 2 pi radian of angle. Okay, the angle is 2 pi radians. So 2 pi radians is how many degrees? We take 2 pi multiplied by 180 upon pi. So pi gets cancelled. 2 into 180, 2 into 180 is 360 degrees. Okay, so this is how you will convert radians into degrees. Now let us see the concept of derived quantities. So we have seen 7 fundamental quantities and 2 supplementary fundamental quantities. Now what are derived quantities? Derived quantities means those quantities which are a combination of 2 or more fundamental quantities. So when you take 2 or more than that fundamental quantities, and whatever quantity you are getting because of that we call as a derived quantity. Okay, let us see simple example. For example, the area. if we want to measure the area of our room, for example, what is the formula we will use? Length multiplied by breadth. So length is one fundamental quantity, breadth, which is also another type of length, that is another fundamental quantity. So area is a combination of two fundamental quantities. Length is taken 2 times. Thereby area becomes a derived quantity. And what is the SI unit for area? One fundamental quantity multiplied by other fundamental, that is length multiplied by length. So SI unit of length is meter. So it is meter multiplied by meter. So what will be meter into meter? It will be meter square. Okay. So therefore SI unit of area is meter square. Let us take another. Let us say volume. How do we measure volume? Length into breadth into height. So length is taken how many times? 3 times. So therefore SI unit of volume will become meter cube. Okay. So this is very important to understand. Whenever you are given any kind of derived quantity, it will be made up of 2 or more fundamental quantities. To find out the unit of that derived quantity, just put the unit of those fundamental quantities. Fine. So this is easy to understand. Area SI unit is meter square. Volume SI unit is meter cube. Let us take another one. Let us say speed. So what is speed? Speed is nothing but it is the distance divided by time. So distance, that is the fundamental quantity, means length. Time is a fundamental quantity. So what will be the SI unit? SI unit will be meter per second. Fine. Or let us take another quantity of force. Right. Force, how do we measure? Force we measure by mass into acceleration. Okay. I hope you remember all these SI units. So what will be the SI unit? For mass, the SI unit is kg. And acceleration, SI unit is meter per second square. So SI unit of force becomes kg meter per second square, or what we call as Newton. Okay. So that is the concept of derived quantity. If you are given any kind of derived quantity, by the formula and by your understanding of fundamental quantities, you can find out its SI unit. So there is no need to memorize each and every SI unit. All you need to memorize is the 7 fundamental units. Now here is the task for you. You are going to make the table of the 7 fundamental quantities and the 2 supplementary quantities along with their SI units. I want you to memorize all these quantities along with their SI units. Very important that you have memorized them. Okay, never forget them. Next, in our textbook, in the appendix section, in the last section, you will be given a list of derived quantities. Okay, you don't have to memorize them or anything, but I want you to see. I want you to take a look at these derived quantities, their names and their SI units. Okay. Now this understanding of units, their quantities, then the idea behind derived units, derived quantities. Okay, that is very important. So make sure that you have understood this properly. If there are any doubts, make sure that you are asking. Okay, and as usual, make sure that you are reading from the textbook. Okay, so with that we will stop for now. Thank you.